Welcome to another episode of the Two World Podcast. I'm getting us started today, and I am Barney, and I am joined with my two very, very good co-hosts. And the one who's on the top left of my screen, wearing a lighter blue T-shirt today, is.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Ken.
And the one who, on my screen at least, looking probably different for you, wearing a darker blue T-shirt today is.
I am Jacob.
All right. And it feels great to have another episode today. And maybe some of you out there are thinking of some summer vacation plans. And maybe you've heard us talk about this destination that we're going to talk about today a few times, probably in relationship to especially the wedding episode that we did. And as my wedding was there. And it turns out that our other co-host, Ken, has quite a history with this town as well. And so today's topic is going to be the very wonderful and weird city of Portland.
Yeah, it's funny you mention weird right away because I'm thinking of words like quirky and eccentric and multiple personalities. I haven't been there, 50 times, but let's see. I think my second trip there was for the purpose of a wedding as well. Barney, the very special place in your heart, I'm sure. My wife's daughter and now son-in-law were married a little bit outside of Portland, I believe to the north at an outdoor venue. So that afforded us an opportunity to start to get into Portland and some of the surrounding areas. So that was our first connection. You mentioned weird. If I could start with just a fun little story. I think 3 years ago we went, and by the way, viewers, today is Barney's birthday, and we wish him well that way. We went to Portland over my birthday in October, as well as Halloween, which is a great time to be in Portland. I asked that we go to an Italian restaurant. So we went to an Italian restaurant the afternoon of my birthday, and the proprietor, the owner, was not that busy, and he came and sat with us, and he's got a New York Yankees hat on and a very deep Italian accent as well, so the conversation followed from that quite animated in an animated fashion and a lot of fun. On our way out, the other folks, the and his daughter, son-in-law, and our little grandbaby, they went outside, and I was there with this person, I wish I remembered his name. But we really started talking and laughing and talking and joking about New York versus, Ohio and all of those things, and we talked a while, and I said, "Hey, I want you to know that it's my birthday today, and the folks that live here in Portland chose your restaurant as a venue for celebrating my birthday," and he was so touched by that, and, he said, "Wait, you cannot go, I," and he brings out a bottle of wine, and he says, "Here you go, have a very happy birthday now, and I hope you come back." Yay. Yay
Wow.
for Portland.
So sweet.
So, on we went that weekend. Jacob, how do you see Portland from afar, or I don't know if you have connections with it?
Well, some years back, there was this show on Netflix. I think it probably maybe had started somewhere else, but Netflix was hosting it for a while, Portlandia. And Katie and I really got into that for a while and had a lot of fun. And it was such a quirky show. And I think it was playing off of the quirkiness of the city.
Mhm.
It's known to have some unique, fun aspects. But then in addition to that, one of my friends here in Worcester, you know him too, Ken, and I think you might have met him too, Barney. Jeremy Clevenger lived a good part of his life in Portland and has a lot to say about that and good things. And then years ago, I went to a conference in Eugene, Oregon, but I flew into Portland. And so that's the only time I've been in the city when I was driving from Portland to Eugene and coming back into Portland. And it was really interesting. So, yeah, that's my context. But probably the biggest of those is that Portlandia show, which was really fun
Mhm.
and quirky. So, yeah.
Oh, neat, neat.
Yeah, in your case, Ken, was your son-in-law originally from the area, or how was it that he ended up, or he and your daughter ended up there?
It's a great question, Barney, and to add to the quirkiness, and the feeling of all that in our show today, her daughter, of course, is from this area. She grew up in Rittman, Ohio, and she moves to Portland around 2012 and meets Brad after a year or so out there. Brad is from near Cleveland, Ohio. Figure the odds there, right? I mean, these things happen. And so two Ohio people meet in Portland and fall in love and end up being married and now are residing out there. They live really right in the city, right near the river, the Willamette, if I'm saying it correctly. They live right near the river. You could almost see it from the house. The tram goes right over their house up to the hospital right above them. So they're right down there. Yeah.
As Oh, yeah, sorry.
Go
Just
ahead.
a note with reference to the river name. My friend who lived in Portland and then invited me over the first time, she has a good story of, she was just walking around the city and she, saw the sign of the river and she's like, just saying to herself, Willamette. And then some guy walks over to her and he goes, "It's Willamette, damn it."
Oh, it is Willamette. Okay.
So then
Good
she's like,
correction.
"Okay, that's how you
Yeah, we're
remember how to say it." And then he gives her a good smile. So now I
that's a
just
good
know,
one.
it's Willamette, damn it.
Oh boy. Well, that's good. It's I guess we'll get into some pictures later, but there are unusual aspects to this city. While you can see a fairly prominent contingent of homeless people, it's very acceptable in Portland to find a piece of ground and set up a tent for protection and live as best you can. Some cities, of course, frown upon that sort of thing, but Portland has always embraced it, and that's part of part of them certainly. Restaurants, probably akin to a lot of big cities. Restaurants are also very eclectic, and I've learned some new foods while being there, and the for people that are foodies, those kinds of things are interesting. Jacob, I don't know if when did you fly into the airport? How long ago was it?
Wow. Boy, I wanna say that was maybe 2008?
2008. Okay.
Yes, yes.
The
So
only
it's been a
reason
while.
the only reason I'm asking is it's probably within the last 5 years or so. They've installed this really interesting carpet in the airport. It's so Portlandish. It's just a different kind of pattern that, everything is pretty generic in most airports because who cares? We need to get to the next flight. And you can tell they put some thought into this to make it interesting, and it is. It is. Yeah.
The other day, I was driving home from Walmart, and I saw a car in front of me with a bumper sticker. I don't know if you've seen this one, but it said, "Keep Portland weird." I don't know if you've seen that one. And then a little, like, drawing of the city or something. Yeah. But I this term keeps coming up, quirky or weird or outlandish. I'm hoping that we can kind of put some specificity to that a little bit or unpack it, what we mean by that, and all of it we're saying in a good way, like it's the type that is fun and enjoyable. But how do we hopefully unpack that over the course of our episode today? It would be really good to let our
Yeah.
listeners know if they haven't been what it why we're saying that and why it's often claimed to be such. So
Sure.
I
Yeah,
think
some of the
maybe,
slides are gonna do that, but go ahead,
yeah, I
Barney.
was thinking too, yeah, we should get into the slides first, but maybe while we're still just a little bit on the topic of food, I think that Portland has quite a reputation for its food trucks. as well.
Yes.
And I'm curious, Ken, did you or have you made it to Voodoo Donuts, any of their branches in one of your
No.
trips? Oh,
Voodoo.
yeah. Voodoo
Ah.
Donuts. Yeah, I first knew about them on Amazing Race of all things, the TV show. I think their final stop was in Portland. And and then when I was there the first time, my friend took me there, and that is an eclectic arrangement of donuts. They'll have like Lucky Charms on top, or there's one fritter that I just didn't get, and I still regret that I didn't get it. It was like a mafia fritter or something like that. I forget what it was, but I think it had, I can't remember, but there's another donut that has bacon on it and just any kind of flavor combination you can imagine. You can probably find it there. And it's very, very, I think, like eclectic is just the word to use. And it's so Portland in itself, just that place. And it's a giant pink sign, of course, and, like a skeleton character. And I think that a lot of people maybe who have gone to Portland maybe try to stop there. And they have branched out beyond donuts. I think I saw that they have beer, and I think that they had bacon flavored beer to go with their their bacon flavored donut. And of course, that's also in a giant pink bottle. So I think Portland, probably one thing when it comes to food, they probably try to be really kind of pure or more organic, or really do things kind of an upfront, honest way. Like when you see the breweries, you kind of see that they're microbrews and kind of done in a unique way, but also in a really like organic, healthy way. And there's an author that I like reading. I can't remember her name. I know her first name is Gigi, but she she sets her character on Hawthorne Street, and she features a lot of interesting foods that everything's locally grown and whatnot, and kind of even just reading the book, you think, oh wow, yeah, that's quintessential for Portland, but such a unique place with it, such a unique character. I think
I'll have to remember the donuts, Barney. I
Voodoo
and
Donuts.
I'll add one more that once I describe it, it'll be fairly obvious why there's no slides for it. Maybe you know where I'm going, Barney. They have an annual bike event each year. I don't know what the name of it is, but a lot of it's naked. A lot of the riders are naked. It's an option, but again, there's Portland. I assume it's during the warm weather,
Yeah.
but yep, that's Portland, and
Hmm.
I imagine there are some other cities in the world where this is a completely acceptable event.
And then, without further ado, would you like to walk us through some of your slides then?
Sure.
All right, great. Okay, so I'll see if I can get this going here. I think I probably say this every time that, whenever I use my mom's computer, I still don't quite understand how to get the slideshare going. So we'll see how it works here. So I think
There we are.
all right. Is it full screen?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So the text, the font sizes, the font style and whatnot is a little bit different from what Ken originally had for us. So please, if you're watching along, then just imagine a really neat font that he has for introducing Portland, Oregon. And what do we have here?
Well, we have the Max. It's it's energy efficient and it's like it's streetcar-ish. And I admit, Angie and I have not ridden on it, but its reputation as being efficient and very now, even though it's still a streetcar, they do quite well in town as well as the bus system. Go ahead. Barney, why don't you take this one?
Yeah. So I think Portland's nickname is the Rose City. Is that right? And in the middle here, we have a photo of the International Rose Test Garden, which I imagine probably a lot of people visiting Portland make sure to go to. And then I didn't go there, but my family went there when they were there for the wedding to the Japanese gardens, and I think that they are very, very well done. How do you feel, Ken? You have a better sense of how they are than I do. How did you feel when you were there?
Mhm. Yeah, they're very nicely done, and it was a total pleasurable experience to walk through them. I don't know as much about plants, although the labels are great, as my wife does. I think it was extremely exciting for her. There's a quick, shot of my wife's daughter and son-in-law
Mhm.
and what was then their daughter as a tiny, tiny tot. She's now 3.5 years old. Her face lit up a lot in amazement with the various different vegetation, and it's really just set in nicely. I always marvel at the fact that within large cities, there can be these
Mm.
places, and Barney, as you alluded to, Portland is a very organic city, and they take very good care of this sort of thing as well as, the Trader Joe's markets and so on
Mm.
with many organic foods.
Yeah.
Next.
Now this was a quick, spend an evening here, throw down a blanket in the back of this school. I was vaguely aware of what a chimney swift is, and what they do in an evening, but I was not at all prepared for the magnitude of what we were seeing here, and I know my picture doesn't on my left, doesn't do great justice, but there are just thousands of them that come in waves, and they all settle into this chimney every single night, and I wonder what it's like inside that chimney. Does everybody quiet down and get to sleep? It's just such a crazy thing. They just keep coming and coming, and you think, "Well, that's gotta be it." Nope, nope, here comes another wave. So, really interesting, especially with my love of birds, just to see that little spectacle and bring a picnic and settle into waiting for them to make their nightly arrival.
How was the sound?
It 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 was extremely audible. Again, that's why I wondered what's it like down in that
Mm.
vertical tunnel where did they just all grab the wall and settle in for the evening? Do they go down very low? Yeah, it'd be fun to be there in the morning as well.
Mhm. Mm.
If you like books, everybody that visits the city will come to Powell's Bookstore right downtown, multiple floors. It's a kind of bookstore where, you wanna have your phone with you with the GPS, so,
Yeah.
you might be lost and have to figure out how to get back. That's the little granddaughter there in the kids section. There are also many Powell bookstores downtown that aren't quite the magnitude of this one. For me, the thrill of it all is that there's still an audience for very large bookstores with just a magnitude of books that people are interested in purchasing. It's busy all the time. We usually go there on a weekday, and boy, it's just exciting to walk through there. Barney,
I
did
think
you by chance?
I did go, and I think is the main store, is it about a block in size or maybe a little bit less? I might be too big, but I know that they do have, like, a map of the bookstore itself when you get there.
Uh-huh. I think you're right, it is a full block.
Mhm.
Yeah, remarkable. Okay, here is the river, the site of many activities. This is just a general picture where we stayed with relatives. They are on the sort of the southwest side of the river. So kind of, yeah, southwest side. And we were within walking distance of the river. They are up on a hill living. So we would walk toward the river. Then there was an elevator that dropped you down to sea level, I guess you would say. And
Mm,
then you could start experiencing what's going on in the river. And there'll be a little bit more on that here
mhm.
to come. Barney, memories there?
I just mainly just taking the bridge to and fro. I
Mhm.
think that my friend, when I was there, was living on the eastern side, I think. And then
Okay,
so when I would take the bus, like you said, the bus was so good. Yeah, we would always go across the river to get into the main part of town.
sure.
And
Go ahead.
I think that Voodoo Donuts is just across the bridge when you go to the western side. It's just
Ah,
across the bridge and down to the left is where it is.
okay. Yeah, there's maybe five prominent bridges crossing it. I think we would always cross the Ross Island Bridge to
Mm,
get west where we needed to go.
right on.
Go ahead.
There we go.
So as I said, I was there during Halloween one year, and I wish at that time I had a little bit better camera on my phone that could zoom better. But this is the annual witch parade on the river. All of these characters are dressed in various modes of witch outfits, and they're on paddle boards. And what I marveled at is the distance they covered. You know, they come from way down there, come by here, turn around, and go all the way back. And it's quite a feat, quite a feat. But
Yeah,
the outfits are just outstanding, and some of them make little witchy sounds, and there are kids on smaller paddle boards that will have this experience as well. So I assume this is pretty unique to Portland.
I would love to know the history of this. How was
Yeah.
it that someone decided to do this and then it gained a following?
What are we gonna do for Halloween? Hey, I have an idea.
Nothing says witches than
Like
paddleboards
paddleboard.
down the river.
Yeah, and probably people at that meeting, there was no one going, "Yeah, but" it was probably, "Yeah,
You nailed it. That's exactly right.
let's hit the Willamette." Oh, man.
Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, this is the tram up to the hospital. For us, it was, let's just ride the tram, up to the hospital, which has a good view of the city as well, and then ride it back down and point to, the grandbaby's house on our way down to say, "Hey." One thing I will say, where they live is, eh and Jacob, maybe you found this driving out as well. The traffic, I will say, is endless. All daylight hours. It almost seems like too few lanes for this many people, and we can't do a whole lot about it because this is the way it is. And, even at Angie's daughter and son-in-law's place here, it's hard to sit out front because they're very close to, I think it's Interstate 5 or Route 5, which is just constant, and it's hard to have a conversation out
Mm.
front down there.
I was pretty fortunate when I was driving that it was at night. I flew in at night and,
Good.
I didn't encounter much traffic, and when I was coming back, it was later as well, so I was fortunate, but I believe it. It was definitely
Mhm.
a big city, and I could see that.
Yeah. This past, year, 2024, we decided to go to Portland for, Christmas, and, the folks there said, Well, we should go downtown because today is the tuba concert in Portland." How perfect is that for Portland? It's not an orchestral concert with many different instruments. This shall be all tubas of various sizes. And I'm not a real music guy, and maybe I'll know about the different kinds of tubas, but great fun and a massive crowd all around this tent where they were located. Jacob, as you know, we have a young girl in the eighth grade who has played the tuba for a few years now. Her name is Nora, and so I made sure to take some video and send it to her to see, just to say, look what can be done with the tuba, Nora. This is amazing. Great fun there. It was a little hard to see for a short person like me, so you have to really scramble to get a spot, but you don't necessarily have to see.
Mm. Mhm. Oh, it's video.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to get audio with it, but yeah,
Oh, let me see here.
unless it's just muted.
One second. I think I can share my audio too here.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's the only video I think in the group.
Oh, are we still sharing here?
It went to a black screen at the moment.
Black screen.
Oh, it's back. It's back.
Give a special. Okay. All right. Let's see. All right. I think that. Let me just double check. Apologize to everyone. All right. I think that it's ready to go. Let's see what we can have here.
Has written some pieces for this group.
Yes.
For many other groups. I don't know how he does it. He works full time and writes, I swear, 12 hours a night. Let's see. This is a wonderful piece called Married in Juneau.
On grade, it was something like the mountain growth and
I think the name of the song is Married in Juneau.
Mhm.
I don't know what that has to do with Christmas necessarily.
Wow. That
Oh,
was
yeah.
impressive.
Yeah. Oh, I can just imagine it's neat the different types of songs that they probably play, and probably when it's a really lively one, it probably gets very boisterous there.
Yeah, pretty animated.
Mhm.
Yeah, there were Christmas songs, yeah.
All right.
Space is at a premium in the city. As a matter of fact, where my wife's daughter lives, they do not have a yard, and, it's understandable in the neighborhood they're in. But Portland, again, trying to provide a bit of green space here and there, have community gardens, and this is their plot. And you can see that mom's getting a little bit of help from the daughter Wren as they tend to their garden.
Mhm.
One of my great memories in watching this Christmas Eve service, there were several hundred people here. It was a large room. And Jacob, you may remember me telling you this. I watched Jacob conduct the Christmas Eve service at our home church in Worcester, Ohio. And it was remarkable to me, even though we know the history of the occasion, certainly. But the service which Jacob conducted was very similar in nature to the service here with, talking about the birth of Christ and so on. Very special. And as we do in Worcester and they did here, there were candles at the end and singing Silent Night, just like my absolute favorite part of the service back in Worcester. I don't know if you remember, Jacob, us mentioning that in passing.
That's so cool. Yes, I love that connection.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
And one of our last stops during the Christmas holiday was what is called the Grotto. I don't know, it's sort of in a way like a fairgrounds with various buildings. There was one building where uh, there were groups of people that choirs that were singing and so on, and lots of lights outdoors. Just a lot of fun, especially if you're a 3-year old, just to watch all this. Unfortunately, as is the case quite often in Portland, Seattle has more of a reputation, but pretty heavy rains while we were going around at this one, but enough indoor venues to kind of balance that out as well. I wish I knew the history of the grotto, but I do not. And here we are hiking on Christmas Day. My wife's son is holding the dog on in what is the right side of the picture as I look at it. Another another rainy day, but Portland does not seem to be all that affected by it. For one thing, the temperatures are rather temperate, and so it's not a freezing rain. It's just rain, drizzle. It does keep things lush. There's a lot of mosses on the rocks, which is really interesting, a lot of hanging greenery that stays around all year long, so that helps to balance out the lack of sunshine, which you do experience in this city quite a bit.
Barney, pardon me, Ken, in this picture, I just think, Angie and Adrian look so similar, and I don't know if you
Uh-huh.
see that in this photo or not, but
Yeah.
shared characteristics there.
Mhm.
Smile.
And we were looking when they were here, we were looking at we were mirroring some photos off their phones on our TV, and Adrian posted a picture of her at Ren's age, and even though Ren's got that white blonde hair, there's another distinct facial resemblance between the 2 of them.
Wow.
Yeah. I think that's oh, yeah, a couple other yeah, this is a pretty famous waterfall. As we were one year heading from Portland to Idaho, to Mountain Home, Idaho, sorta near Boise, to visit my wife's son, where he is now living. This is one of those must stops and, yeah, pretty impressive waterfall. This is, yeah, east of Portland, I think a bit north maybe. And the most famous mountain in Oregon. Angie's son-in-law and daughter have a cabin that they use and rent out as an Airbnb, and they sometimes will block days while we're out there so we can stay there. They're pretty close to Mount Hood. They're pretty avid skiers, and granddaughter Ren has had her first experience this past winter in skiing. Again, the climate is temperate, but once you start climbing elevation near Mount Hood, it's not too hard to find snow. And we actually went sled riding in our visit at Christmas time last year, and that was a lot of fun.
Mhm.
I've always loved this picture because I don't think I was probably aware as I took it, the amazing reflection of the rocks within the crystal blue waters of that small pond there. Nice place to hike.
Mhm.
And the most famous lake in Oregon, and a very, very deep lake. People can describe the blueness of it, and it's hard for me to do it justice. You look at it and say, they must be putting dye in the water, that it's that unique. And it's up in elevation a bit. This is from 2016 when we went out for the wedding. We were here probably around September 26th, 27th. Then the wedding, I think, was October 1st. Angie's son drove out. He was then living in Ohio. After the wedding, he drove up here to circumnavigate around the lake, and it was closed because within a matter of 5 days, the snows had already hit here at this elevation, so he could see a little bit of it, but couldn't take in the magnitude.
Mm.
That's an
I
impressive
think.
picture. Wow.
Oh yeah, I think that might
Great.
be the last slide that you prepared. Maybe.
I think so, yes.
Okay, so I'll stop the share for a little
Thanks.
bit and.
Yeah, for
Mhm.
setting that up, guys.
Oh yeah.
Thank you
What?
for putting it together. That was really,
Yeah.
really wonderful.
What were some of the things that struck you, Jacob, as you were looking through the photos with us, with myself as well, with Ken? Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like, well, I think Ken this is just my own kind of perspective, but he's drawn to natural beauty. So a lot of his photos will zoom in on that and find it wherever he is in the world. That's just my thought. So Ken, you really did a
Mhm.
good job of capturing the
Thank you.
beauty surrounding the city. And then I thought, obviously some of the character of the culture of the city came through with the unique events of the witches on the paddle boards and the tuba concert and things that are just out of the box that are so fun. I loved that. And yeah, I thought this another magical part of the slides were the family connections that Ken has there. Just could see how meaningful it was for him and Angie to be there and be connecting with Adrian and the family. And so yeah, those are some big themes. How about for you, Barney?
Yeah, I think that as we look through Ken's photos and then thinking about what we've talked about so far, I realized probably Oregon has a real strong sense of community, or Portland has a real strong
Mm,
sense of community, I think. So I think that, like, for the I'm thinking of the tuba concert and the witches paddleboard thing. I don't feel like they set any limits to it. I feel like it is way open, and it's like, if you have a witch's costume and a paddleboard, come on down. If you have a tuba and need the sheet music, come on down too. I feel like there's no limiting, like, whoever you are, whatever you like. If you can play, you can play. If you can paddleboard, you can paddleboard. You're completely welcome. I kind of
mm.
get that sense of Portland. I think that those pictures really emphasize that.
Yeah.
That's a great
Well, boy, you're
insight.
spot on, Barney.
Mm.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Jacob.
No, I was just going to echo what you said. That's a really great insight. I like that.
Mm.
Did,
I
is
wish
there?
I had I wish I had included a picture of the major farmers market. Again, I get that feeling, Barney, that if I had some onions and beets and I could just walk up and set up a stand, I
Yeah.
don't think it's rigidly, yeah. And you can get some nice cooked foods. And again, with a temperate climate, they can do 12 months a year.
Mhm.
Certain things are going to continue growing, like lettuce and so on. Yeah.
it, as you're talking there about the farmers market, it was reminding me a little bit about some of the themes in that show I was talking about earlier about Portlandia and just the culture surrounding organic food and like I think you mentioned it earlier. There's like a real like health conscious drive like in the local culture for organic things and eating in a healthy way and it sounds like exercise and I don't know that seems like kind of a theme too that in the subtext of your photos, like just people doing athletic things, people eating healthily. I mean, not everybody, but it seems like there's a sizable part of the population there that really values that kind of health
Sure.
and wellness. And I don't know if I'm picking that up
Yeah.
right.
And Angie's daughter was a vegetarian before going to Portland.
Mm.
So out of respect for her and so on, when we're cooking foods there, as you can imagine, I'm eating a little differently and probably a lot more healthy than normally here at home. And dinner's become a bit of a challenge because of that. A humorous story, because there are a number of grandparents involved in the granddaughter's life and babysitters and so on. They had this delightful babysitter one time for something that mom and dad needed to attend, and they were checking in with her. This is in Portland now, and it happened with a grandparent as well. But at one point, the babysitter texted back to Adrian and Brad and said, "Boy, Ren just loves this pulled pork," and they didn't totally freak. And Ren's 2 years old, but oops. Oh, bad. Well, but dad does occasionally eat meat, or they'll be out, they'll order
Mhm.
breakfast like when they were here this week, and mom will order, a veggie omelet with a side of bacon and just hand it over and off
Mhm.
you go. Yeah. Oops.
Yeah. Shall we take a look at some of my photos then and kind of give a different view, but actually some overlap as well? So I have only been to Portland twice, and my my friend that I said had the story of Willamette River earlier, she just invited me one year, and it was 2010, and she said, "Why don't you come out to visit us in Portland sometime?" I was like, "Yeah, you know what? That sounds great. There's a direct flight." And then, so it was that summer, and then I thought, well, how about the next March? I think the next year, then I'll get it. So I got my tickets way in advance, and got my seat ready, and everything was ready to go. And then it was just a matter of counting down. And then, as I said, it was March of 2011 that I went out there, and I'll share my screen. We'll start off with Ken's photo here of Crater Lake again. Okay. And is it showing up again?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. So as we were getting closer to my time of the flight, then we had this happen in Japan.
Oh.
And
Oh,
so it was the very, very big earthquake of on March 11 of 2011. And then on the left is
yeah.
my office with papers and books and folders and Winnie the Pooh and everything that went on the floor. And during the earthquake that we cleaned up. And on the right is a picture of my refrigerator in the apartment. And I walked in the apartment and thought, what are you doing here in the middle of the kitchen? That's where you belong.
Whoa.
Oh, my.
So it had scooted as far as the electric cord would let it scoot. And after that, then this was after the earthquake. The kids were outside. So things have really changed quite a bit for us. And then this was the supermarket where you could go and hope to find some food that you could buy on the shelves. Day by day, you would get there amidst the brownouts and hope that maybe, there would be something that could get you by, but otherwise you would get by with what you had at home. And so for me then, just about 10 days later, my flight to Portland was very welcome. So it was really nice to have that I had that arranged and had the chance to hop on the plane from Narita to Portland. And just as Ken said, and we started off the show, and then as Jacob said, there is the bumper sticker to keep Portland weird. And this was the first place that we went to eat, the first where we were, they had this sticker on there, and I thought, there might be something interesting about this town. So I had to make sure to get a photo of that one. And
Barney, I love the one below it. The
I had
arches
to
and Taco
I
Bell.
had to edit that a little bit. If you can probably fill in the blanks yourself.
Man. Oh, it's funny.
Yeah. So, but about the weirdness, on the left, I was walking down the street and there were gummy bears just everywhere on the ground. I don't know what the story was. If, in Portland, you don't know. Someone might have put them there on purpose. Or they might have just opened the bag and they flew everywhere. I don't know. And then on the right we have a statue of a horse that's all dressed up, and you see these kind of statues and these things all around town. And it's just so interesting how unique the city is in so many different aspects of it.
Barney, I
And
have a question for you.
yeah. Hmm.
In your experience there,
Mm.
well, in my experiences, and they're still somewhat limited, it felt like a under 50 years old kind of city now.
Mm.
I don't know if catering to that age group is accurate, but just walking the streets, I don't know. I got that feeling.
I have the feeling too that Portland, maybe the Portland now, because these photos are 14 years old,
Hmm.
probably in the more recent years became very, very popular, which
Hmm.
probably attributes to the traffic problem that you
Ah,
mentioned. And I think that, yeah, a lot of people who are looking for a place where they can really feel like they're fitting in and it meets their desires and lifestyle, probably Portland would be, the choice for
okay.
them. And so I think that since then, like housing and whatnot has gotten pretty steep too.
Oh, it is.
Yeah. Well, I think especially when you can find the world's smallest public park, I think it's Mills End. I always forget if it's Mill Ends Park or Mills End Park, but I think it
Oh,
Mills End Park. And then this is a public park in the middle of a street, and it's a park for fairies, actually. So you're always supposed to be careful when you go there. And I just quickly, you cross this, you wait for the signal to change, cross the street, take a picture, and then go to the other end. And then on your way back, then you cross the street and take a picture again. But again, so many unique things that you would say only in Portland.
That park's even smaller than Martin Park, you know?
Yeah.
Have you heard of Martin Park, Ken?
uh-uh.
Oh, this is great. You have to tell Ken about
Okay.
Martin Park real quickly, Barney.
Right, 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 right. This park is also more beautiful than Martin Park. I think that the in Japan, at least in our area, I guess in our prefecture, housing development places are required to feature some kind of park space or public space that's a green space where nothing is built there. And it just happens that our house is bordering that green space, and it has two benches and a hill. And the hill used to have a tree, but it died. So no one was at this time when we moved in, no one was on the other side of the park. And so I thought, just as a joke, I'll register this as a place on Google Map and I'll call it Martin Park. And it got accepted. So
That's amazing.
so then we had a neighborhood gathering and someone brought up, hey, about that Martin Park. And I said, you know what? I'm really sorry. I'll go ahead. I'll go to Google. I'll change the name. And they're like, no, we really like it. We think it makes this place feel international. And so I was like, well, good. I'm glad I get to keep it. So, you know,
It even has a Google review. Barney reviewed it. So if you go on
Oh,
Google,
I'm writing it
I,
down now.
yeah, I know.
you got
I thought,
it's worth the visit for our listeners too. If you're interested,
yeah.
you look up Martin Park in Narita and you'll have a good time.
That's great.
Read
And
Barney's review.
Barney, you didn't even have to die to have something like that named
No,
after
I
you.
know, right? And I'm thinking many years down the road, people will say, now who was this Martin guy that they named this park after? You know, must have been a pretty good person to get a park named after him.
Oh, yes. Good story.
Oh, it has
Yeah.
2 reviews now.
Whoa.
Yeah, there's a second
What?
review giving it 5 stars.
5 stars.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't think that person has ever been there.
But Barney says, "It's a rather sad little park. It has 2 benches and the stump of a dead tree in the middle of a small mound."
I thought to myself,
And their
I don't want
photographs. Is that a pigeon? Or no, that's a nice bird.
Yeah,
What do you
it's a
think? I'm
nice
sorry.
video. So I thought to myself, I don't want this place to become popular because then a lot of people it'll become a hotspot of Doritos. So I've got to really rate this place down.
These photos are nice in the winter. You have, snow
Yeah,
there on
thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Nice.
You can really get the
4
sense.
seasons of Martin Park.
Now that you know how it is, you don't have to visit. But then probably the opposite is the case. You're like, wow, that park really does look nice. I've got to get there.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, boy. Meanwhile,
Meanwhile. So then when I went to Powell Books, my friend showed me the rare books area. And I thought it's so interesting that they have sports and magic together. But I think it's on the 3rd floor. It's the rare books area. And they had a first edition of Harry Potter. And that one was either the Sorcerer's Stone or the Philosopher's Stone. I forget which one that was. But even back then, it was fetching a huge, huge price back then. And if it's still there, it's probably even more. But it was interesting to see the really, really old books that they had there. And that was really neat about there. But yeah, the fact that they decided to group sports and magic together, I thought that was pretty fun.
yeah, that's interesting.
And then this is from the Portland Museum. If you go to Portland, you could easily spend a day just at the museum. It was wonderful. I really enjoyed it. Have you been there, Ken?
No, it's a must see, obviously.
Yeah. This one I think is The Liberation of Peter, and I can't remember the artist who did it, but it was so touching for me. It's the story of when the angel came to get Peter out of jail. And I just love the expression and on both the angel and Peter. Peter, looks a little dazed, a little stunned, a little bit what's going on here. And then you can kind of see in the angel's voice like an urgency, and there really was that urgency for Peter to get him out because he was in trouble. But then also the way that they depicted the angel kind of looking, I don't know, like an everyday kind of person, like not so angelic, not so necessarily powerful. Just, I wonder if it could even be a self-portrait of the artist. But this one, as I took the photo of it, this painting really spoke to me. I really enjoyed it. And I just could have spent even more time there. I really appreciate that. And I think this is the oldest museum in Western America, I believe, is what I saw. Yeah.
And I just looked this up while you were talking, Barney. I think the artist is Gerrit van Honthorst. And he painted in Utrecht between 1590 and 1656.
Thank you for adding that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And this is the grotto. So I also went to the grotto. When I was looking of places to go, I was really drawn to it. It is a Catholic kind of, not monastery, but like a sanctuary that's kind of set apart outside of the city a bit. And it's a lot of open space, a lot of nature. And they have a really nice labyrinth there for walking. And I really enjoyed my time there. It was the one thing I was really, really looking forward to. Even though I didn't really know much about it, I was looking forward to the chance to spend the day there. And I did spend most of the morning and beyond lunch there with just the chance to be quiet and find some time to settle down and relax there. And then outside of Portland, this was grist mill, they said, and it's a working mill that is still driven by the river, I think, and they will mill flour for you there in a bunch of different styles that you want, and then you just kind of like honors system. You just pay what you think it's worth, and then they have recipes to go with it, and you can see the beautiful river and the greenery, and then kind of true to what Ken said, it wasn't much longer that we had pouring rain. And we just waited for the rain pass. And then, as my friend said, the one nice thing about Portland is soon after the rain is the rainbow.
Mm.
And my photo doesn't do this one justice either. It was very, very vibrant rainbow that we had there. And then we had the chance to enjoy the Willamette Valley and take in some of the wineries there. And there's really just a lot to do. And this is my friend in the middle who invited me along. And you'll see a photo of her coming up soon in the second part of my time in Portland. Then she also took me to along the waterfall. She said, I'm going to take you to see this waterfall. And then she took me to this one. I think this was like the Horsetail waterfall. And I said, yeah, it's nice. Wow. Waterfall's really great. That's just really nice waterfall. And then she's like, oh, you like that one? Oh, well, let's just drive a little bit further. And then she took me to the one that Ken also showed, the Multnomah Falls there.
Yeah.
And yeah, what a big towering waterfall it is.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then I'll just keep going for the second part of our visit then. The second part of the visit then was for our wedding. And Ayako and I prepared this nice welcome to our wedding reception sign. And Ayako's friend who flew with her with Vietnam Airlines, she was an exchange student and stayed in Portland. So she came with us to the wedding. And our wedding was a Wednesday, so we arrived on a Friday to make sure that we could go downtown and get our marriage certificate. And because I think you have to have 2 days before the wedding, I thought, oh, is it 2 full days? Just to be sure, we better go on a Friday. And then my family prepared these, for the rehearsal dinner, they prepared 1,000 paper cranes for us that they got set up all around, and we occupied a big portion of the restaurant. And you can see how young my nieces and nephews are there at that time. I guess it's going to be next month. It will be 12 years ago that we had the wedding. Yeah. And then at the wedding, this on the left, it was, or on the whole wedding here, it was in the Rose Test Garden. And then in the Shakespeare Garden, I think I told the story of how there, the first time I thought, wow, if only you place was available for weddings. And my friend here in the middle again said, yes, it sure is. And they got us reserved the wedding. And, my wife and her dad walked down the path, and my brother Craig and my wife's sister and her cousin, and then my two friends sang What a Friend We Have in Jesus, but in Japanese as part of the service. We found a local Mennonite pastor who was retired who officiated for us, and I found out that one of the people I graduated with from Goshen was a Mennonite pastor there as well, and she was a history major with me, and I thought she would go into law, but she got called to the seminary, but she wasn't available then, so we were really blessed to have this person as our pastor, and then officiating the ceremony. And then, yeah, I thought that the person taking photos then this was during the kind of the we did kind of a reverse reception line where Ayako and I went around to everybody and then lit their beeswax candles and told everyone how we appreciated them along the way. And of course, it was so nice. I thought the photographer did such a great job getting this photo of my dad and my mom. And then more photos of Willamette or of the Multnomah Falls. And there's a funny story. Did you hear this story, Ken, of someone was having a wedding reception on the bridge there. And during the reception, a giant boulder was dislodged and tumbled down below and splashed everyone who was on the bridge.
I wonder if they had to
Yeah.
pay extra.
I wonder, yeah, that what a great memory.
Oh,
But,
man.
yeah, that didn't happen to us, but you can get a view of the size of the falls. Just amazing. And then we too went to Crater Lake, but it was during the forest fires in California.
Mm.
So this was what we got to see. It made it spooky, but yeah, it was so hazy that you couldn't get a real good sense of the water there, and it's blue. And you'll see that I'm wearing this shirt that I bought here in Japan that says, Je m'appelle Thomas Lelou. And which means my name is Thomas Lelou. And we were, as we were hiking down, some other people passed us along the way and they said, "Oh, hey, Thomas." And then as we were walking down, I thought, I wonder why they said that. And then I looked Ayako and I thought for a while, and I was like, oh, it's my shirt. Oh.
That happened to me once with somebody when I walked by somebody, they made this weird sound like, "Rah-oh, rah-oh," and I'm like, "Why did they make that weird sound?" And I looked down and it had a Pac-Man shirt on. You know, this is the sound Pac-Man eats when he eats the pellets, you know.
So
I thought that was
great.
weird. You know, they're like, "Rah-oh, rah-oh." I'm like,
What did I ever do to them?
but anyway, the Thomas Lelou, that's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And then so that, like, kind of like Ken said, there's so many things in Portland and outside of Portland. If you drive, you could spend a long time there and just have a great, great time.
Right. Wow. Well, that was great, Barney.
Yeah.
Are there any other commentary? Any other commentary you'd like to bring up before we conclude this day?
I just am kind of wondering, it seems to me like because you both have had such significant experiences in Portland, it's one of those cities that is one of the prominent ones that sticks with you that you visited. You know, for example, I have this app on my phone and it's just a timer app for an iPhone, but you can set up like the local time in various cities. And so I have Narita in it as one of my cities, and I have the city where Katie used to go to vacation, Sagatuck. And I have about 5 cities because those are ones that have left a huge impression on me. Would Portland make the like the top 5 or top 10 list of your life list of cities, so to speak, that you visited?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. For me, for sure. Yeah, it really would.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't say that I've visited a ton of cities because, we're more of get away from it all, but it's there. Jacob, I do the same thing on my laptop. I've got a place in Italy and, little clocks. It's interesting you
Isn't
do
that
that as
fun?
well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Just I wonder what time it is in such and such, or the weather app. I wonder what the weather's like there right now. So
Yeah.
we
Yeah,
have
yeah.
Edinburgh, Scotland is another one for us because Katie and I got to go there for our 20th. That's
Oh,
another one we
yeah.
have in our rotation.
Yes.
But
Mhm.
Narita is one of them, Barney. So,
Wow.
and of course
Yep.
Worcester.
I look at Portland's
Mhm.
weather a lot just to, I know if I said to my wife, would you like to move to Portland? She'd be in the car because of the grandbaby.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, but to be very frank, I don't think I want to live there. 'cause I'm not a city person necessarily. But, as you were just alluding to, there are places around galore. We went and dipped our toes in the Columbia River, which isn't far away to the north, and right across it is Vancouver, Washington.
Mhm.
The other Vancouver is much more well known, of course, in
Mhm.
Canada, and California is just to the south, and, yeah, there's lots of things to see, in the coast, of course.
Thank you guys so much for sharing about your experiences in Portland. That was really fun.
Mm.
It was fun. Yeah. Well, to our viewing audience, we are grateful that you have been willing to, journey with us. If you get a chance and have never been to Oregon, and Portland in particular, it will be worth your time. Bring some money. It is a different way to live out there. If our family moved back from Portland to Ohio, they could buy a very large house because, if you live there and make a living earning Portland kind of money, California kind of money, you will understand that. So once again, thank you for journeying with us on this eclectic, quirky, unique, unusual journey to Portland, Oregon, and we look forward to our next time together here on the Two World Podcast. Be well.